What would it look like if we treated great works of art in the same way that we treat our planet? Imagine a company or entity buying the Mona Lisa, cutting it up, and selling pieces of it because more money could be made in the short term by selling the pieces rather than preserving the original work. Now imagine the same entity wants to expand and increase its profits. To do so, it must continue buying and breaking apart great works of art till there's nothing left. These are just a couple of the ideas that I explore with Beethoven 6.1. The piece also looks at the environmental costs of resource extraction, water pollution, the effects of climate change, and more. This work is a reimagining of Beethoven's original landscape, altered to reflect the current sounds of environmental abuse and destruction. The first movement looks at one of the driving forces behind the plundering of our natural world, an economic model based on infinite expansion on a planet with finite resources, where the lust for short-term profits outweighs sustainability, even if the end result is annihilation. This idea is expressed in the first movement by going back to the example of the Mona Lisa. Every note in the first movement is for sale, and ideally the money raised should be used to fund environmental groups or projects. Now, the way this works is that sometime before the performance, probably along with ticket sales, a list of items for sale, essentially every note in the first movement, is published and orders are taken. The group or organization sponsoring the event will set the prices for each note, phrase, or entire instrumental part of the first movement depending on how the group decides to break the piece apart for marketing. You could also do an auction if you wanted. There are a number of ways that you could approach this. The organization may also want to offer different price points for how each item is sold and presented to the buyer. For example, printed, hand-copied. There could be a recording of the note or section sold and presented to the buyer. Could be a live performance in a private session before the concert. Could be printed in gold on a tote, on a mug, etc. The possibilities are really endless. In any event, once a note or phrase or part is sold, it should be replaced with rests in the score and the parts. Now, at the concert, only the remaining notes, those that have not been sold, will be performed for the audience. Moving on to the second movement, the scene at the brook reveals a brook that is still flowing as it was in Beethoven's time, but now the sounds of nature are obscured by the sounds of trucks, blasting, and explosions. The backup alarms of the trucks, imitated by the flutes, can also be heard as an alarm clock of sorts, warning us to take action before time runs out. The water becomes polluted with sulfur, arsenic, mercury, and iron. And finally, the birds that Beethoven once heard are different now. The quail remains, but the nightingale and the cuckoo have long been driven off. We hear now a crow and a mourning dove instead, since these birds will still inhabit disturbed land. There is no merry gathering of country folk in this work. There are no people. With the water contaminated and the resources gone, we're standing in a ghost town. There are echoes of what had once been, a fragment of a melody on the wind, blowing by like a piece of discarded plastic across the land, the memory of evacuations, a squeaky gate, and an old aluminum screen door slamming in the wind. The storm we encounter is bigger, stronger, and longer than the original. A superstorm fueled by climate change. It is devastating. Then we're confronted with the aftermath. There are no thankful feelings as in the original, and major becomes minor as we assess the damage. Now, the orchestral forces to perform this piece are very close to the original symphony and can be performed with the addition of a few extra percussionists, a microphone, and a laptop. I hope this inspires you to check out the score and consider performing this piece as part of the Beethoven Pastoral Project. Please contact me if you have any questions or would like to know more, and I look forward to hearing from you.